Rob Maaddi. His appearance brought to you by Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. He joins us for our last look at the big win. What stood out in the game? I know Jonathan Gannon, Shane Steichen, they spoke today, and the Eagles are 1-0, but they did it in very impressive fashion, Rob. It wasn't an ugly win. They really steamrolled was the word Baldy used with us last week, and they did exactly what he said. They steamrolled the Falcons. So is this a sign of things to come, or are the Falcons that bad?
Well, I think it's a combination of the Falcons not being that good of a football team. And the Eagles, Mike, they dominated, man. They dominated right from the start. A couple early series that they had to get the defense going, and they held them. They held them to field goals. But it was just an impressive victory. When you told me that last week about Baldy saying they're going to steamroll them, I was like, man, are you kidding me? They're steamrolling. I thought the offense would score some points. I had them at 23. They scored 32. I didn't think the defense was going to come out and be that convincing. And it was just a sound victory up and down across the board. Love the way Jalen Hurts played. How could you not? Poise, command, had a lot. He was able to just create plays when he needed to and then take what the defense was giving him. And I know some people were talking about, well, he didn't take too many shots down the field. Okay, he didn't have to when he completed that many passes and they were having so much success. And if the defense took that away, he found other things to do. The running game was strong and solid. And what can you say, Mike, about the offensive line, man? What a dominant performance by that offensive line. And every time I've talked to you or I've talked about this team, I've emphasized the importance and the need of the offensive line. If they come back healthy, if they're able to play up front the way we know they're capable of, if Jordan Mailata develops and Isaac Seumalo had a great game, they're going to be the difference between 2 or 3 wins. And they certainly proved it against the Falcons. And despite 7 penalties by the offensive line. So there's still things they can clean up and fix, and they're going to get better.
That's the point I was making as well, was the ugliest part of the game, Rob, was the penalties, but they came from veteran guys. If it's young guys and they're making rookie mistakes, that's one thing. These are veteran guys that you would think are going to clean that up. I mean, Seumalo went off sides, 3 times? Lane Johnson had a rough day. He's not a guy. So that, to me, is not going to be an issue. But you're right. That offensive line really dominated. Now, Atlanta, not a very big team up front. They dominate up there. They're going to get tested this week, especially Jordan Mailata. I want to ask you about that contract. Some people are like, wait a second, they gave this guy a contract. He played 10 games. So what's your take on the contract? They went out and identified a young player and gave him a big deal.
And they wanted to get ahead of it, Mike. They wanted to make sure that they signed him now at a more team-friendly contract than if he were to go out and have a Pro Bowl season, or even if he had an all-pro season, then forget it. He's going to be skyrocketing his salary through the roof. So I understand what they did and why they did it. I've been more of a let's prove it first. Prove it over an extended period of time before you give somebody a contract. We can all point to giving Carson Wentz a contract coming off a season where he had the knee injury, then the back injury, and then they give him the contract, and look how that ended up playing out for them. So I thought maybe they'd be reluctant. Of course, he didn't get that kind of money or those kind of guarantees, but I don't think Jordan Mailata is going to get complacent because he got the money. I don't think Jordan Mailata is going to stop trying to prove what he can be in the NFL and continue to try and get better and grow and develop and all of that stuff. So they did it. They put their faith in Jordan Mailata, and he certainly went out there against the Falcons, and he's going to be tested on a weekly basis, though. When you're playing that left tackle position, you're going to constantly be tested.
Well, he's going to get tested with Bosa this week, obviously. This is going to be a big upgrade from what he did because he dominated. That line dominated, as you talked about. But because, Rob, the line dominated, it allowed these young skill position players to kind of show what they can do. So what did you like about the way Nick Sirianni accentuated the positives of his skill players?
Man, he did exactly what we were hoping he would do, and that's cater an offense to the strengths of your players, get guys involved. I remember talking to you last week saying, hey, I'd like to see these young receivers get involved early with some short passes. Well, Quez Watkins of all the guys gets the first 3 plays. He don't catch anything again the rest of the game, but got him involved, got Jalen Hurts into the flow early. A lot of short passes, a lot of mid-range passes, and And then the touchdown pass to Devontae Smith was beautifully executed, beautifully drawn up. Zach Ertz does his job there, a little bit of a rub, and Devontae is one-on-one. Perfect throw, perfect catch. I love the way Sirianni used his players, his pieces. They're able to, both Nick Sirianni and Jonathan Gannon were rotating guys in, getting a lot of players out there. There's a lot of versatility on this team. There's some depth that we're seeing on this team. But I can't get so carried away, Mike. It's the Atlanta Falcons. The San Francisco 49ers are a much better football team. We need to see it more on a consistent basis. I don't want to say that this was listen, anytime you beat anybody 32-6, that's a great thing. You don't want to go out there and beat a bad team 16-13. They pounded them. They beat a bad team. We didn't expect that to happen. That was terrific. That was great. But each week is going to be a challenge. Each week is going to be a test. And as people see what this team looks like now on film, because you didn't see them in the preseason, now there's some film out there on the Eagles. There's some film out there on Nick Sirianni's offense, on what he wants to do, on what they look like. I would anticipate defenses are going to be better prepared for them, and it's going to be a tougher challenge. And I just remember going back to 2016. Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson began with a 3-0 start, and they routed the Pittsburgh Steelers 34-3, I believe it was, in the third win before going on an early bye, which kind of killed their momentum. And that season ended up 7-9. So I've learned not to get carried away with any one victory.
Yep, I feel that there, and I do remember that they got off to that great start, and then there was a part there where you were questioning whether Peterson knew what he was doing. I think it was that Lions game they lost where, who was it, Ryan Matthews or somebody fumbled the ball late in the game. But, this team just felt a little different because of the fact that the quarterback didn't turn the ball over. I mean, we asked so many times last year if the quarterback just played mediocre, what the difference of that season would be. And Hurts, I don't think he played all pro. He was just good, not great. He didn't panic. That was what I saw. A guy who just didn't panic. Now, how much of that is the offensive line was fantastic. Carson didn't have that last year. But I thought the quarterback really rubbed off on the entire offense. That was something that I really took from the game is he was cool, calm. What did Sirianni say after the game, Rob? He was in control. He ran the offense the way we wanted him to. And that, you saw Carson on Sunday. I hate to bring him into this, but he got sacked 3 times. He's holding on to the ball. And you wonder, man, I mean, how much of the quarterback's temperament was an issue?
Yeah, well, his offensive line in Indy wasn't helping him. It was reminiscent of him playing behind the Eagles last year. I was like, nothing changed. You go over there, and the offensive line's not helping you out. You know what Jalen looked like? He looked like Carson in 2017 a little bit. He looked like Carson in 2016, the first 3 of those starts. So that's what you need. And you need a quarterback who's calm, cool, collected. You need a quarterback who is, and I love that he's able to extend plays. The 1 touchdown pass to Goddard was tremendous as he's rolling out. He makes that throw. Beautiful. It was phenomenal. It was kind of like Carson and Miles Sanders in D.C. 2 years, 2019, that last 4-game stretch, that one where he threw it over a couple guys. But Jalen, this is what we've talked about since he's been here is he's got the leadership ability. He's got the poise. He's got all the intangibles. Can he translate that out onto the football field and make his plays, make the passes? And I love the fact that he completed 77% of his passes because one of the biggest question marks coming in was, well, he was under 60%. Nobody's under 60%. Not in this NFL anymore. Back in the Joe Montana era, you were 60%. You were great. Now everybody's in borderline 70, 72, 73. Everybody's over 60 with the short passes and everything else. And you can't touch quarterbacks, and the receivers have so much freedom and all that. So it was great to see him at 77%. And I think he can certainly build off this. And it's awesome to be able to come out there, be convincing, be dominant, and have something like that to fall back on all throughout the week as you get ready for a tough opponent in the San Francisco 49ers.
Okay, now with that, you asked Nick Sirianni after the game, after a convincing win, you got a lot of young guys. We all saw the video of them jumping up and down, going crazy in that locker room as if they won the last game of the year, not the first game of the year. How do they bring that same energy and be prepared and realize that, hey, you got to put the pads on again next week and play a different opponent?
Yeah, and I wanted to know how he feels about coming off a win like that and what you have to do, one, to maintain that energy, Make sure they're prepared and no letdown. You can't afford a letdown because, listen, when you have 53 guys on a team and an X amount of guys in a locker room with the practice squad, some guys, the tendency is going to be like, hey, look what I did last week. They're going to feel the confidence level is going to rise. And you want to make sure that these guys don't get in any way, shape, or form complacent or fall back on it. And I thought he gave a great answer. And he said, hey, if I'm coming out here on Wednesday thinking about what I did last Sunday, I'm going to get my butt kicked this upcoming Sunday. It can't happen. And he's got to impress that upon the players, and he's got to make sure that they know, hey, whatever you did, that's in the past. That was last week. New opponent, new team. Bring the same energy, bring the same preparation, but don't feel like you've accomplished anything just yet. And he brought it back to, hey, in all honesty, he said, we've only won one game. We got to go out there and do it again.
All right, Nick, Nick Sirianni, who obviously is getting very high reviews. What about Jonathan Gannon's side of things? You know, I laugh because last year Jim Schwartz, he don't blitz enough. They blitzed the third least amount of times in all of football this weekend. 10% of plays were blitzes. So it wasn't that they weren't blitzing or blitzes wasn't the issue. What did Gannon do? Because early in the game, people were panicking. Oh, my God, they're not tackling it. And then what?
Yeah, early in the game, I saw some tweets comparing him to Jim Schwartz. I was like, hey, we played 2 series. Let's calm down, right? Let's relax. It's only been 2 series. I love the way he brought some pressure. He brought some heat without having to rely on blitzes. They got such a dominant defensive line up there. Their defensive line was able to control the line of scrimmage. They were able to make Matt Ryan so uncomfortable in the pocket. And I thought Matt Ryan looked more like the second-year pro, and Jalen Hurts looked like the veteran. And that's got a lot to do with Gannon's scheme and those guys up front. And the defensive lineman, Javon Hargrave had a terrific game, rotating guys in. I love that Gannon does it too as well, rotates guys in, keeps the legs fresh, because here's what happens, Mike. You get to the fourth quarter, and you got fresh legs on the defensive side because guys are getting rotated in. And the offensive linemen, man, they're out there every play. Every play that they're not banged up, dinged up, they're not hurt, they're out there. So that wears on you. That takes a toll on you, and you're retreating. You're trying to pass protect, and you have these fresh legs coming at you. And that's a great thing. I thought they did some nice things. Eric Wilson with the team high, I believe he had 9 sacks. He did some nice things, and he'll have a tough test. All that linebacker core have a really tough test this week with George Kittle and the 49ers. And the secondary, they lose Marcus Epps, and obviously we know Rodney McLeod's not back yet. He'll probably be back maybe later September, hopefully, or no later than early October. We'll see on that. And they're going to need him back there because these next 3 opponents are not, they're playing some teams that can score some points. So this defense is going to be challenged.
We will talk more about Eagles-Niners when Rob is back on Thursday's edition of the show. Biggest takeaway from the win was what?
Man, Jalen Hurts, to me, passed every test. And when I look at that, I look at it and say, I don't know yet if Jalen Hurts is the answer. I was willing to bet on him in the preseason. I was willing to bet on him coming into this season, and he certainly didn't let me down week 1. He went out there and he showed that he can play, that he's a winner. He's got the temperament. He's got the mentality. He's got the talent, and he can put things together. Nick Sirianni's not going to be out-coached. He's going to make some adjustments. He's going to cater he said it. He walked his talk, man. He kept saying it and saying it. Hey, I cater my offense to the strengths of my players. Well, we saw that. So I look at those 2 things because, hey, at the end of the day, Mike, we always analyze the quarterback and the head coach first. That's where we always sit back and before we look at the O-line or the D-line or the secondary or the linebacker. It's always the easiest thing to do is look at the coach, look at the quarterback. And for me, they aced this test on Sunday against the Atlanta Falcons.
Real quick, they reworked Fletcher Cox's contract today. What is the reasoning behind that?
Well, it's good to have some flexibility. I believe it's $11 million in salary cap space that opened up, and I think they'll look at some of the guys that they can re-up because Howie loves to do that in season, and that's something that they can do. I don't think it's opening up money, Mike, to bring in anybody at this point. It's going to be hard to bring in guys at this point. And of course, especially with the rules and the protocols and everything else. You don't bring a guy in and he's available to you right away. But I think it's more likely that they'll use that money to re-up one of their guys before sometime, maybe in October, November.
By the way, you mentioned Howie. Mailata, Hurts, Smith, Rieger, Gainwell, Goddard, Watkins, Sanders. They're all drafted by Howie Roseman.
Give him credit, man. You got to give the guy credit where it's due. I always thought that Howie was given too much criticism for some of the draft picks, and while some of them have been abysmal, we know that. Sometimes you got to let guys play out a few years, and I was never ready to give up on Jalen Rieger, and I was really excited to see Jalen Rieger score that touchdown and be involved, because I thought this was a kid last year who came into a tough situation and then having to see Justin Jefferson continue to pile up numbers for the Minnesota Vikings. It's not about 1 year. It's not about 2 years. It's about 5 years. And Justin Jefferson may very well be the better player for the duration of his career. But I think Jalen Rieger's still got some talent, and it was nice to see a coaching staff bring that out of him, man. And that's what Howie will point to. Hey, I got you the guys. Let's develop them. And,
well, he made the comment of, hey, we're not ready to write off last year's draft class. We're excited about this new coaching staff getting their hands on these guys, and that was definitely something that stood out. Rob, Faith on the Field Saturday at 9 o'clock. Who we talking to?
We're going to go back-to-back Eagles players. This week we're going to have Rodney McLeod. So we're going to have Rodney on this week. It's a long conversation. He talks a little bit about Nick. He talks a little bit about Jalen, talks about coming back off that ACL injury, which he had suffered before, so he knows exactly what it takes to rehab. Of course, when he spoke to the media a couple of weeks ago, Mike, the first thing he sat down, he said, God is good, and I always want to talk to an athlete who is coming off some adversity and dealing with things like that and is able to keep things in perspective. So, of course, we certainly talk about his faith. But he had glowing praise for Sirianni, glowing praise for Jalen Hurts. We talked last week ahead of week 1, and they went out there and certainly made Rodney look good.
Saturday at 9, Sunday 6:30, Faith on the Field, Rob Maaddi hosts. And, of course, he'll be back on Thursday right here with a look at Eagles and the Niners. All right, pal. We'll see you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, bud.
Rob Maaddi here on the Sports Bash, and he is brought to you by Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. Rob Maaddi's appearance each Tuesday and Thursday is brought to you by our friends over at Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash.